We all need energy. Energy for driving our cars, energy for heating our houses, energy for industrial production. Without energy, there's no economic growth and development. Our society would immediately grind to a halt. A large part of our energy use is in the form of heat. Heat is used in industry for a large range of production processes, but also in our homes, shops and other buildings for heating and hot water production. We must improve the sustainability of our energy system by increasing energy efficiency and by using renewable sources of energy. There are many types of renewable energy, but looking at heat production, bioenergy has the highest potential by far. Heating is an important part of Bulgaria's energy supply. About 11% of the total primary energy consumption is used for the production of heat in heating plants and cogeneration units. Next to centralized heat production, large amounts of fuels are used for direct heat production in industry, but also in homes, shops and other buildings. When including these fuels, the total heat consumption is several factors higher.
Бих казала, много сериозна е ролята на топлинната енергия в енергийния баланс на България, тъй като една част от нея може да бъде получена по традиционния начин от конвенционални горива, другата част може да бъде получена от възобновяеми енергийни източници, които на този етап в България се разглеждат като важен елемент от енергийния баланс на страната.
Biomass comprises a wide variety of materials of biological origin, such as wood logs, chips and sawdust, or straw and vegetable oils, but also residues like demolition wood, animal manure and the organic component of municipal waste classify as biomass. Biomass can be used for energy purposes in many ways. We can use biomass to produce electricity. We can use biofuels to drive our cars, but the most important application to date is the production of heat. Biomass has been the dominant fuel throughout history, and many people still heat their houses using firewood in a traditional way. However, over the last decades, modern biomass boilers have been developed that burn biomass more cleanly and efficiently. These biomass boilers are just as convenient and reliable to operate as gas and oil boilers. Logically, modern biomass boilers gained popularity throughout Europe.
Биоенергията, основно биомасата в нашата страна, се използва за задоволяване енергийните потребности на населението и до известна степен на промишлеността в нейната производствена дейност, но основно в бита.
Biomass is by far the most important source of renewable heat used in Bulgaria today. Biomass heating in households contributes just over half of the renewable heat. Mainly wood logs, but also wood chips and wood wastes are used. Biomass used in industry and district heating contributes 20%. A nice example is found in the town of Bansko, situated near the Pirin Mountains. The company Bulgaria decided to invest in a biomass-fueled heating plant to supply heat through the town's heating network.
Използването на биомаса за топлинна енергия в нашата топлоцентрала се наложи от това, че в същото време в региона има много дървопреработващи предприятия, които имат голями количество отпадна дървесина, така наречените изрезки. Те досега се използваха от частните потребители, от частните къщи, но огромно количество от тази дървесина оставаше складирана, неизползвана.
At present, the company has 10 megawatts of heating capacity, consisting of 2 fully automated boiler installations.
Миналата година ние работехме само с един котел от 5 мегавата и опита ни подсказа, че ние ще закъснееме с изграждането на още един котел, ако се забавиме с още една година. Затова точно това лято ние инсталирахме още един котел с още 5 мегавата. Така че в момента очакваната мощност, която може да подадем на нашите потребители, е 10 мегавата мощност.
The company's main clients are the town's municipal buildings and an increasing number of hotels. They are happy with the opportunity of district heating as it brings down the heating costs, while at the same time contributing to a cleaner environment.
Това беше основният фактор, поради който предприехме тази радикална промяна. Надяваме се на определено по-ниски цени за отопляване на хотела. Разбира се, че е важно, първо като рентабилност като цена и второ от екологична гледна точка, трето района. Както подчертах, ние сме в такъв район, който е богат на биомаса.
But biomass can also be applied on a smaller scale, for example, for the heating of a single building. Examples of such systems can be found in the towns of Ardino and Gochidelchev, where systems of a few hundred kilowatts are used to heat municipal buildings.
В котелното на училището са монтирани 2 котела от фирма Ерато. Всеки един котел има мощност 300 кВт, работи с биомаса. Разхода на гориво е 130 кг биомаса на час за един котел. Тези 2 котела са напълно достатъчни да отопляват цялото училище и прилежащия към него физкултурен салон.
Тъй като нашият град е разположен в планински район, има много дървопреработващи предприятия и имаме суровина за такъв вид парно отопление. Използвахме пилотен проект за изграждането на котел на биомаса.
In both cases, the municipality decided to switch from fuel oil to biomass, which resulted in considerable savings in liquid fuel consumption.
Преди да се монтират тези котли и училището да премине на отопление с биомаса, ние работихме с 2 котела на мазут или на нафта. Разхода за една учебна година беше около 60 тона. Значи ние трябваше да подсигуриме 60 тона нафта, за да изкараме един зимен сезон.
За функционирането на котела използваме дървесни трици, които снабдяваме от дървопреработващите предприятия в Гоце Делчев и в околните села. Разходите за отопление са намалели. Икономисваме около 300 лива течно гориво на ден.
But there are more options to use bioenergy for heat production. Increasingly, biomass heating plants are built that also produce electricity. We call this cogeneration, or combined heat and power. Cogeneration systems are widely used all over Europe. An example can be found in the Czech town of Třebíč, where the local heating company operates a variety of boilers that produce both heat and electricity. The main fuel used is biomass.
Samotná biomasa se zde začala spalovat v roce 2002. Od této doby narůstá počet jednotlivých zařízení, které spalují biomasu. Jenom pro příklad uvedu, v roce 2002 byla produkce tepla ze zemního plynu vlastně v úrovni 90%. V roce 2007 jsme dokázali díky biomasové technologii stáhnout vlastně výrobu tepelné energie zemního plynu na pouhých 20%. To znamená, že výroba tepelné energie z biomasy zde má prvotřídní význam. Myšlenka výroby elektřiny z biomasy zde se započala v roce 2004, když jsme vůbec zahájili celý tento projekt. Ten projekt trval zhruba rok do doby, než bylo zařízení zrealizováno. My jsme jako nejvýhodnější způsob výroby elektřiny vybrali ORC systém. V České republice je to poměrně novinka a nyní jsou pouze 2 instalace v České republice.
Most biomass cogeneration plants use a turbine for power production. A boiler produces steam, which is expanded through a turbine. After expansion, the steam is still hot enough to be used for heating purposes. The cogeneration installation at TTS also uses a turbine, but instead of water uses an organic fluid as working medium. We call this an organic Rankine cycle.
Výroba elektrické energie z biomasy zde probíhá pomocí ORC technologie. Jako primární okruh je zvolen termoolejový kotel, který je zásoben dřevní biomasou. Tento silikonový olej se vypařuje při 275 stupních a páry tohoto oleje nám roztáčejí lopatková kola turbíny.
So the technology is there. It's efficient, convenient and reliable. But what about the biomass? It takes enormous amounts of biomass to make a considerable contribution to our energy production.
Основните източници на биомаса в България са дървесните източници, дървесната биомаса. Главно това са дървата за огрев, отпадъците от дървообработването, след това горива, произведени на базата на биомаса, като брикети, пелети, енергийни трески. В България има достатъчни количества, и то доста големи количества, неизползвана биомаса.
So wood is by far the most important source of biomass in Bulgaria. It concerns mainly fuel wood used in households, but also large quantities of biomass are produced in wood processing industries. But by far the largest quantities of biomass are still produced in the form of fuel wood, which is used to heat homes. But fuel wood can also be used in modern boiler systems. Such boilers are more and more used in smaller heating systems, for example in hotels.
Котелното се състои от котли 6 броя на биомаса, които са с мощност всеки един по 50 кВт. Той отоплява достатъчно да отопли целия хотел, плюс басейн и 2 бойлера, които са за нуждите за топла вода на почиващите. Тук използваме биомаса, дърва. Доставките се уреждат от собствениците на хотела, доставят ни ги фирми, които доставят дърва в региона. Регионът е доста богат на този ресурс и се доставят тук вече от самите собственици се обаждат и те докарват тук и ние евентуално ги складираме и приготвяме за зимата.
Besides wood fuels from wood processing, there are other sources of biomass that can be used for heating. In the village of Liiva on Muhu Island in Estonia, a boiler is fueled with wood from landscape maintenance.
Liiva tsentraalküttesüsteem ehitati 1976. aastal ja töötas siis 20 aastat kivisööl. 1996 katlamaja rekonstrueeriti Maailmapanga laenu asemel. Tollased muu vallavõimud otsustasid üle minna hakkpuidu kasutamisele.
The biomass boiler has a capacity of 500 kilowatts. It feeds heat into a microgrid, supplying a few large municipal buildings and some smaller households. Most of the biomass is produced by the Public Utilities Department of the municipality.
Oleme nüüd hakkimisprotsessi juures. Siin on hetkel käsil ühe külade äärte puhastamine võsast ja väheväärtuslikust puidust. Antud teeäärt oleme teinud juba 12 aasta jooksul, teeme 3. korda, nii et sisuliselt iga 4-5 aasta tagant annab võsa uut saaki ka meie tingimustes.
But naturally growing woody biomass is not the only possible source of biomass fuel. Biomass for energy purposes can also be purposely grown, for instance, on fallow lands. There's much attention for such energy crops in the Czech Republic.
Tak naše firma tady zkouší na těchto plochách dřeviny biomasu pro bystřickou biomasovou kotelnu. Děláme to pro město Bystřice nad Pernštejnem a zkouší se tady druhy topol, populus a vrba salix. Prozatím jsou to plochy pouze pokusné, to znamená řádově hektary, nikoli desítky nebo stovky hektarů. Máme tady celkem 20 hektarů ploch topolů a vrb různého stáří založení.
So far, energy crops are a relatively expensive source of biomass for energy production, but future developments on the energy market may change this. But there are other types of biomass that can be used for the production of heat.
Освен дървесната биомаса, голям ресурс в нашата страна представляват отпадъците от земеделското производство или по-конкретно сламата.
Across Europe, heating companies have started using straw as fuel.
Myšlenka spalování slámy zde vznikla už v roce 2004, nicméně samotná realizace slámové technologie nastala až v roce 2006.
The main reason for TTS to start using straw was to diversify their fuel supply, and this has proved to be very successful.
My jsme tento první kotel, co je na této teplárně s výkonem 5 MW, spustili v únoru v tomto roce a v současné době je na této teplárně v provozu pouze jeden kus tohoto kotle. Na opačné straně Třebíče se nachází teplárna Jih, kde v současné době v provozu rovněž jeden 5 MW kotel na slámu a instalujeme zde druhý 5 MW kotel. Co se týká spalování slámy, technologie je velice složitá. Je tam především způsob provedení vlastně zaskladnění slámy do hubice kotle. My zde vlastně používáme stříhací mechanismus, to znamená, že spalujeme, dá se říct, třetiny hranatých balíků, které jsou natlačeny pomocí hydraulických agregátů do hubice kotle.
So far, we've been looking at the direct combustion of biomass to produce heat. But there are other possibilities. Anaerobic digestion of organic materials results in the production of a combustible biogas.
Aastal 1993 me teostasime Pääsküla prügilas katsed, kas siin on metaani ja kuidas metaan tuleb ja mis on tema protsent. Me paigaldasime ühe testimiskonteineri, tõime sinna torud juurde ja väike kompressor töötas konteineris ja tuli gaasi. Ja metaani protsent oli kusagil 50%.
The process of anaerobic digestion occurs naturally, for example in landfills, but it can also be applied to animal manure produced on farms.
Máme tady, provozujeme zemědělskou praxi, která čítá 600 prasnic a obhospodařujeme k dnešnímu dní 860 hektarů. Jedna z dalších činností je teda z části produkcí vína. Máme 16 hektarů vinic a k letošním roku jsme se rozhodli realizovat bioplynovou stanici v našem areálu.
The biogas can be used to fuel a gas engine for the production of electricity. The residual heat that is produced can be supplied to a heating grid or used for on-farm drying processes.
Přesně tak, víceméně jedna z prvních myšlenek, když se začal uvažovat o realizaci bioplynové stanice, mě vedla při sušení kukuřice, protože náročnost sušení kukuřice bere sebou velké množství spotřeby zemního plynu. A bioplynová stanice nám víceméně dává možnost velkého množství odpadového tepla, které se dá využít právě pro dosoušení a sušení kukuřice. Takže to byl víceméně, dalo by se říct, obrazně jeden z prvních takových pudů, kdy jsme začali vážně uvažovat o realizaci bioplynové stanice.
Meil on kokku üleüldse 3 tellijat, elektri me müüme Eesti Energiale, sooja me müüme ühes kombijaamas AS Fortumile ja teises kombijaamas AS Tallinna Küttele. ja Tallinna Küte tarbib lisaks ka veel oma biogaasil töötavas katlamajas biogaasi, et tiputundidel me saaksime neid rahuldada normaalse soojakoormusega.
So large amounts of biomass are available in forests from the agricultural sector and from wood industry. The biomass can be used in boilers supplying heat or CHP. But how to get the biomass to the boiler house?
Организирането на производство на биомаса като начало не е лесно, защото ние бяхме първите, които направихме такава топлоцентрала. Първоначално имаме отпадна дървесина, която на около 2,5 км от нашата станция, на една площадка, отпадната дървесина се надробява на малки частици, така наречен технологичен чипс.
From the timber yard, the chips are transported to the boiler house by truck. They are delivered to the storage depot, from where they are fed to a fuel bunker using a shovel. From the hopper, the fuel is automatically transported to the boiler combustion chamber. A characteristic common to all raw biomass is its bulkiness. Compared to oil, we need 3 times the weight in fresh wood chips for the same amount of energy, and due to its low bulk density, we would need 10 times as much volume to store them. Furthermore, the availability of biomass may not necessarily coincide with its demand for energy production. Residues from forests and agriculture are not produced all year round, so if we want to use them continuously, some form of storage is required.
Antud hoidla mahutab siin kuskil 50 kuupmeetrit kütust, nii et igapäevaselt ei pea me kütust metsast siia tooma. Meil on olemas ka suur 1500 kuupmeetrit mahutav nii-öelda vaheladu, kuhu saame ette varuda omale hakke.
From the point of logistics, pellets are a particularly convenient biomass fuel. Pellets are small, dry particles that are produced by compressing dry biomass like sawdust. Due to their easy handling, wood pellets are popular for use in smaller heating systems. All in all, the local logistics are often more demanding for biomass feedstock than for fossil fuels. Transportation and storage often make up a large share of the cost of biomass fuel delivered to a heating plant, and their efficient organization can be complex. For an efficient logistical chain, the right equipment and the right people must be at the right place at the right time. The costs of biomass supply can increase rapidly when equipment is standing idle. For example, when a wood chipper has to wait for a transport vehicle, or when a transport vehicle has to wait while another vehicle is being loaded. An example of a company making an effort to optimize the logistics of biomass supply is the Austrian company Nahwärme. This company has established a dozen or so local biomass district heating plants. For each plant, the challenge is to organize wood fuel supply in the most efficient manner.
Wir haben verschiedene Möglichkeiten. Es gibt verschiedene Logistikketten, aber eine davon ist, die ich jetzt beschreiben werde, ist, dass man manuell, sprich mit Motorsäge, einfach Bäume umschneidet, Schnittware, Schnittholz vorher entfernt und das Restholz dann einsammelt und auf einen Haufen transportiert und dann eben zerhackt. Andere Wege sind voll mechanisiert, wo eben Vorwader mit direkt in den Wald fahren, Bäume voll maschinell schlägern und dann eben wieder das Restholz zu Hackgut verarbeitet wird.
Nahwärme operates as a heat contractor, which means that they not only arrange the installation and financing of a boiler, but also its operation, including the fuel supply. Heat contracting is gaining popularity in Europe and also in Bulgaria.
Фирма Арато се стреми да задоволи крайните си клиенти, като предлага доставка на биогориво, производство на машините, които произвеждат биогоривото, съоръженията, които изгарят биомасата, осигуряване на сервис за тези съоръжения, доставка и изключване на договори за топлинна енергия, както и след гаранционно обслужване на всички наши съоръжения.
Erato operates a number of biomass boilers under heat contracting schemes. For example, this flat block in Sofia.
Котелната инсталация, разположена в приземния етаж на сградата на купените номер 16, захранва с топлинна енергия две 7-етажни сгради с общ отопляем обем около 5500 кубически метра.
In order to organize the biomass supply to their customers, Erato invested in biofuel production, for example wood chips and pellets, in transport equipment and in biofuel depots.
Снабдяването с дърва за огрев, вида биомаса за отопление и за изгаряне в котелната инсталация става от площадката на Ерато Ресурс в град София, на около 10 км от тук. Оттам се осъществява логистиката и всъщност не е трудно да се снабди котелната инсталация с този тип биомаса.
So bioenergy can contribute to the reduction of the environmental problems related to our energy consumption. How does this work? One of the most important environmental problems of our time is climate change caused by the increased greenhouse effect. We know now that climate change is a direct result of our actions, particularly our energy consumption. The greenhouse effect works as follows. The Earth is surrounded by a layer of air, the atmosphere. Sunlight penetrates the atmosphere and reaches the Earth. The Earth's surface in turn radiates heat, but a part of this is absorbed in the atmosphere. This is called the greenhouse effect. When these processes are in balance, the average temperature on Earth remains stable. However, through the emission of additional greenhouse gases, for example carbon dioxide, the greenhouse effect increases, which causes a gradual rise in temperature.
Екологичните ползи от използването на биоенергията са много големи, тъй като биомасата поначало е неутрална по отношение на въглеродния двуокис.
But why does bioenergy not contribute to the greenhouse effect? This works as follows. Trees and plants grow by converting CO2, carbon dioxide, and water into biomass. The CO2 is taken from the atmosphere. The energy for the conversion is supplied by the sun. The biomass may be combusted to produce energy, for example in a heating plant. During combustion, CO2 is formed. However, this amount of CO2 equals the amount that was absorbed while the plant was growing. Overall, there's no net increase in CO2 concentration in the atmosphere. We call this the short carbon cycle.
Българското правителство има много сериозна ангажираност в борбата с парниковия ефект. Това е свързано не само с плановете, които прави всяка държава във връзка с търговията с емисиите, но и с използването на възобновяемите енергийни източници във всяка една тяхна форма.
Мога да кажа, че използването на биомаса наистина носи директни ползи за околната среда. Защото всички комини, които ние сме включили на абонатите, са спрели да пушат. А нашия комин дава абсолютно чиста емисия. Ние имаме спестявания от въглероден диоксид.
Burning coal contributes heavily to the greenhouse effect, and biomass doesn't. But there are more environmental advantages when switching from coal to biomass. Coal combustion also results in sulfur dioxide emissions, which in turn leads to acid rain. Sulfur dioxide can also affect the respiratory system and irritate our eyes.
Смятам, че ползите за околната среда са големи. Определено са доста големи, тъй като въздуха е по-чист, намаляват алергиите при хората, всички дихателни заболявания, свързани с замърсителите във въздуха. Една здрава нация винаги има по-добър има по-висок статус и по-добър просперитет може да предложи, отколкото болна такава.
Our dependency on fossil fuels has other disadvantages than just environmental. Production of fossil fuels like oil and gas is increasingly concentrated in just a few countries. Recent political instability and production disturbances in oil-producing countries and disputes over natural gas prices have made it painfully clear that our dependency on fossil fuels makes us vulnerable. Biomass, on the other hand, can be grown in many places. A large part of the biomass that we need can be obtained from our own country. Using biomass thus increases energy security at a national level, but also of Europe as a whole.
The main point in using biomass, especially for heating purposes, is that we try to use the biomass locally. This means the priority should be to produce the biomass in a specific region and to use the biomass of this region in this region for the heating purposes. And following this concept, you also reach a very high percentage of security of supply because you have just the biomass from your region for your energy needs.
Even if local or regional availability is limited, biomass can be imported from countries with a more abundant biomass supply. A dominant position like that established by OPEC countries would not work with biomass. Using bioenergy has further advantages. The production and trade of biomass can be attractive economic activities, especially in rural areas. Instead of spending billions on fossil fuel imports, we can strengthen our own economy by making better use of our rural resources.
Очакваме, че там ще се създадат много работни места на хора, които ще участват в събирането на суровината, в преработката за вторичен вид суровина и след това в подсигуряването на логистиката и транспортирането и към съответните малки и средни предприятия, големи предприятия или пък отделните потребители, че това ще бъде едно допълнително развитие на транспорт, на транспортни услуги, на административни услуги, на технически услуги, икономически услуги, ако щете.
Ами, проекта за региона носи ползи, защото по този начин се ангажират фирми, които доставят дървата, нали, ако и повече хотели използват това нещо, повече фирми ще доставят дърва, нали, ще ги доставят и ще нови работни места ще.
The described advantages explain why bioenergy is so important to the energy policy of Bulgaria and the European Union. Bulgaria has set ambitious targets with respect to the use of renewable energy.
Българската държава има ангажимент за 11% производство на електрическа енергия от възобновяеми източници. Очакваме, че част от тази енергия ще бъде произведена от биомаса. Но същевременно отчитаме, че е много важно, че биомасата може да се използва в много по-голяма степен за производство на топлинна енергия. И за това топлинната енергия се третира в два закона. Един за възобновяемите енергийни източници, където е предвидено да бъдат издавани сертификати за произход, оттам и участие в търговията на зелени сертификати. И втория момент в Закона за енергийната ефективност, където се предвиждат данъчни преференции за всички потребители, които са, освен мерките за енергийна ефективност, са въвели и мерки за възобновяеми енергийни източници в сградите си. Най-вече биомаса.
In January 2008, the European Commission proposed a new directive that sets ambitious targets for the combined contribution from biofuels, renewable electricity, and renewable heating and cooling. The target for the EU as a whole is 20% in 2020. For Bulgaria, the target for 2020 is set at 16%, up from 9.4% in 2005.
What's important for heating and cooling is that it now includes this sector in the overall target. So before we had a target for electricity and for biofuels, but not for heating and cooling. Now heating and cooling is included, and that will give a strong incentive to member states to make many efforts to boost the growth in this sector.
EU directives are binding for all EU member states, so they are very important for national policy and thus for the development of renewable energy.
We saw that these directives from the European Commission have a very big impact on the development of a market. And therefore we see it as a very important step forward that in this new directive now, the heating sector is part of the directive, and we expect a very strong push for renewable heating in the next years.
We've seen that bioheat is environmentally friendly, that there are many different types of suitable biomass feedstock, and that the conversion technology is well developed. But how does bioheat compare financially to other energy sources? Prices of energy have been increasing over the past years, and we don't want to increase the cost of our heat supply further. The economics of bioenergy projects are very case-specific. Investment costs depend heavily on the chosen technology. Operational costs vary even more, as biomass may be available for free or may have to be bought from third parties. Compared with fossil fuel systems, bioenergy systems have typically higher initial investment costs, but much lower operational costs.
На практика биомасата е най-евтина в Република България. Главно се използват дървата за огрев, които към 80% се използват в бита. Главно заради ниската цена. В сравнение с електроенергия, течни горива, дори и каменните въглища, цената е няколко пъти по-ниска.
Bioenergy systems should be used to their fullest capacity for the large part of the year. The more biomass is used, the more fossil fuel saved, and thus the higher the fuel cost savings.
Да направим едно сравнение между биомаса и другите енергийни източници, най-лесно ще ви го направя с нафтата. Ако 1 мегаватт, приемаме, че това е единицата, мегаватт час, единицата за отопляване с нашата енергия, ако е с нафта, ще струва 180 лева. При нас 1 мегаватт час струва 100 лева.
Разходите за отопление с биомаса стават все по-конкурентни на разходите за отопление с изкопаеми горива, имайки предвид последните скокове на цените на твърдите изкопаемите горива. Биомасата има и голямо предимство, тъй като съоръженията, които изгарят биомаса, позволяват пълно автоматизиране, което е голямо предимство при крайните потребители.
В момента собствениците на двете сгради плащат с около 30% по-малко разходи за топлинна енергия, използвайки биомасата в сравнение с изгаряне на промишлен газьол.
Although there are many commercial biomass heating systems on the market, a lot of effort is put in developing new technologies and applications. Universities and industries are constantly looking for processes that are more energy efficient, more cost-effective, or providing new forms of energy or fuels.
We're going to need all possible technologies in heating and cooling, electricity or biofuels to reach the 20% target. What we've done is to say that member states can do two things. They can invest in different technologies now to help bring down costs, to increase production capacity and generate economies of scale for the range of different technologies which are not yet competitive. They can also, in some circumstances, wait a bit until the research and development has been undertaken to bring those technology costs down. So as time goes by, new technologies will become cheaper and come on stream, and we can rely on those in later years to help us reach the targets.
One of the technologies under development is biomass gasification. In a gasifier, biomass reacts with a limited amount of oxygen. Instead of burning completely, the biomass is transformed into a combustible gas which, after cleaning, can be used for energy generation, for example, in a gas engine or gas turbine. The result of very successful biomass gasifier development work is found in Güssing, a town in the Austrian province of Burgenland.
Die Vergasung Güssing ist eine neue Technologie. Das Holz wird hier nicht verbrannt, sondern in einem Wirbelschichtverfahren vergast. Dieses Gas wird dann gekühlt, gereinigt und das gereinigte Gas dann in einem Gasmotor zu Strom und Wärme umgesetzt.
Gasification has several advantages over other bioenergy technologies, but the one standing out most is its high energy efficiency in comparison to conventional steam cycle CHP technology, especially on smaller scales.
Das Biomassekraftwerk erzeugt ca. 2 Megawatt Strom und ungefähr 4,5 bis 5,5 Megawatt Wärme in verschiedenen Temperaturniveaus. Und wir sind in der Lage, diese Temperaturniveaus auszukoppeln, es in das Fernwärmenetz Güssing einzuspeisen. Und das nicht nur im Winter, wir haben auch die Möglichkeit, über den Sommer hinweg die gesamte Wärme einzusetzen. Wir verwenden diese Wärme zum Trocknen von Holz, für Prozesswärme der Betriebe und auch zum Kühlen von Gebäuden mit einer speziellen Technologie.
Although the Güssing plant is seen as the world's most successful gasifier, many hurdles had to be taken before the installation functioned as it does today.
Das Vergasungssystem hat von Anfang an sehr gut funktioniert, aber Nebenaggregate wie Kühler, Wärmetauscher und so haben uns vor sehr große Schwierigkeiten gesetzt. Aber es ist dann doch gelungen, mit Hilfe der Forschung, mit Hilfe unserer Leute hier einiges zu adaptieren. Und seit dem Jahr 2004 läuft das Kraftwerk ausgezeichnet. Wir reden hier von ca. 7500 Betriebsstunden pro Jahr und das ist schon sehr, sehr gut.
Apart from being a technical success story, the Güssing gasifier is also a prime showcase of how science and industry can cooperate successfully.
Das Vergasungsprojekt Güssing ist deshalb so erfolgreich, weil es erstmals gelungen ist, hier die Wissenschaft, den Anlagenbetreiber und die Industrie ins Boot zu holen. Wir arbeiten in einem Dreieck zusammen, das Güssinger Triangle, wie wir es immer nennen. Und so können wir die ganzen Synergien nutzen, die aus der Forschung herauskommen, das Know-how des Anlagenbetreibers hineinbringen und die Industrie kann dann dieses Produkt adaptieren und vermarkten.
Another relatively new application of bioenergy is cooling. With absorption cooling technology, residual heat can be turned into cooling. Heating and cooling systems combine perfectly. When in summer there is little demand for heat, it can be turned into cooling. One of the first biomass plants combining cogeneration with cooling is installed at the Fischer ski factory in Ried im Innkreis, Austria. The company decided to switch to biomass for its energy supply in the year 2000.
Es hat zwei ganz große Kriterien gegeben. Das erste war, wir haben eine überalterte Ölkesselanlage gehabt, die aus dem Jahre 1972 bestanden ist. Diese Anlage durch das neue Kesselgesetz und Dampfkesselverordnung konnten wir die Emissionswerte nicht mehr erreichen und wir hätten in diese Anlagen investieren müssen. Und der zweite Aspekt war natürlich, wir sind Erzeuger von Freizeitartikeln, also Ski und Tennis. Und unsere Firmenphilosophie ist natürlich auch, wir haben natürlich auch einen Umweltgedanken und der war mitentscheidend, dass wir uns für die Biomasse entschieden haben.
The core of the trigeneration plant is an 8 megawatt boiler plant. The boiler produces steam that drives a 600 kilowatt generator and supplies process steam to the factory. Furthermore, the plant produces 600 kilowatts of cooling, which is used in the ski factory for cooling presses.
Es funktioniert so über eine Absorberanlage, also genauso wie im Prinzip wie bei einem Kühlschrank, wird auch über das Heißwasser, also über diese Wärme, diese produzierte Wärme, die die Biomasse abgibt, im umgekehrten Kreis Kühlung produziert, wobei wir unsere Kühlung benötigen für unsere ganzen Skipressen, für die Produktion, weil ja zuerst die ganzen Anlagen, die ganzen Modelle über eine gewisse Temperatur aufgeheizt werden müssen und nach einem Zyklus wieder abgekühlt werden müssen.
The trigeneration plant at the Fischer ski factory was a very innovative project and it received the prestigious Energy Globe Award in 2001. But more important to the company is making a contribution to fight climate change.
Das ist klar. Also für uns ist das natürlich wichtig. Man hat im letzten Winter war ja das große Szenario, da hat man nur von Klima- und Erderwärmung gesprochen, weil eben der Schnee auch ausgeblieben ist. Heuer ist das Gott sei Dank nicht so. Und es war natürlich letztes Jahr für die gesamte Skiindustrie, aber auch für den ganzen Wintersport nicht so gut, wenn kein Schnee ist. Und für uns ist das natürlich wichtig.
So why is it that bioenergy plants may be financially viable, but can still be difficult to finance?
Bioenergy plants, like all renewable energy plants or other investments, are financed with a mix of equity and loans. And in some cases, grants can be provided, and for early technologies or new projects also quite some subsidies.
Commercial projects very often also require bank loans. But getting a bank loan for a bioenergy project is not always very easy.
Well, banks can be a bit hesitant to provide loans when they cannot judge the risks, or the risk associated with biomass feedstock prices and volumes, and also the technology involved. And this is often the case in the countries where there's not so much experience with bioenergy projects yet. But once there's more relevant experience in a particular country, the banks are usually more eager to provide the necessary loans.
An additional issue is the size of projects. Banks need to recover the resources they spend on reviewing loan requests. As the effort is practically the same for small or large projects, banks naturally prefer larger projects, and especially biomass heating projects are relatively small. The different issues surrounding the financing of bioenergy projects call for new financing mechanisms, for instance, the establishment of a specialized investment facility.
Yeah, we are in the process of establishing such a bioenergy investment fund, and we will be able to provide the equity needed to raise the interest of banks in providing loans, and thus leverage maximally. And this fund will be especially focused on small to medium scale projects, which will be bundled and then structurized to make them attractive for the banks.
So we expect our energy use to continue to grow for all uses, including heating and cooling. But rather than relying ever more on imported fossil fuels, we can make use of energy sources that are locally available, that do not harm the environment, that help strengthen our economy, and that decrease our energy dependency. And we can start using them today.
Определено много. Определено много може да се развива един регион, който използва местните си ресурси. Това е нашето очакване във връзка с написването на закона за възобновяемите енергийни източници и на това залагаме изключително много.
The feedstock and technology are available. The advantages are obvious and the policies are in place. In short, the potential is enormous.
Самата биомаса в финансова гледна точка е доста по-евтина и изгодна в сравнение, да кажем, с дизеловото гориво или с въглищата.
But for bioenergy to develop further and for its contribution to increase, what it also takes are committed individuals. Technology developers, project champions, investors, banks, end users, visionaries, and practical persons that are going to make it happen. Maybe you will be one of them?